there, and welcome to Better Than This. This is a show for ambitious humans who are tired of the status quo playbook and are looking for something better. My name is Meghan French Dunbar, and I've spent the last decade exploring what it would take to improve work for everyone, to discover whether or not it's possible to succeed in business without being forced to sacrifice ourselves, without the chronic stress, the burnout, guilt, overwhelm, the anxiety. Good news, it is. As an author, entrepreneur, journalist, and resident instigator, I've interviewed over 1,000 extraordinary business leaders who've achieved success by throwing the old playbook out the window and doing everything differently. What's even better is that this new playbook improves your performance, your workplace, and your life. If you're ready to admit that the way we're working isn't working and are looking for something better than this, you're in the right place. Let's get started. A number of years ago, we were having dinner with two of our closest friends, Carrie and Nathan. And let me tell you something about Carrie. She is a straight shooter. She tells it like it is. While we were having dinner, I think I laughed at something Nathan said, and she said, "Meghan, it's so nice to see you happy. I feel like it's been a few years since I've seen you really happy." I knew that I hadn't been particularly happy. I had had a baby and then COVID and then another baby, and there'd just been a lot of years of things changing in my life. And although I knew that I wasn't particularly happy, having a friend point it out for me, it was a critical moment for me that helped me press the pause button and begin to explore the issue of joy and happiness. And specifically, I started looking at, for me, what made me joyful and what was my relationship with joy. And I would offer the same questions to you. Do you, right now at this moment in your life, if I say, what are the things that make you the most joyful? Does that answer come easily? Is that something that you can access? Are you very connected with what makes you feel joyful? And second question, what is your relationship with those things, if you even know what they are? When you access those things that bring you immense joy, how do you feel? Is there any part of you that perhaps feels guilty or selfish or like it's a luxury? Because that is what I started noticing, was that once I identified really what brought me joy, when I actually participated in those activities, there was always this background noise in my head of guilt that I wasn't taking care of something, or I wasn't working, that I wasn't deserving the moment of joy that I was having in my life. And the more that I explored this and the more that I talked to other women about it, I realized that I wasn't alone. So if this is something that you feel as well, you are in fact not alone. And there are specific reasons why. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why are so many of us disconnected from joy? Why is joy so important? And we're going to do 3 specific practices that will help any of you reconnect with your joy and help you flourish more in life. We're going to start with the first part of this. Why are so many of us disconnected from our joy? So the systemic root causes, we're going to specifically look at working women. And there's 2 things working against working women when it comes to accessing our joy. One is the whole pesky patriarchy situation where, as women, we are conditioned as we get older to believe that our role at home is to take care of everything and everyone. If you have children, take care of your children, take care of your spouse, take care of your social life, your home life, take care of your family and friends. Everything is about giving of yourself. In their book, The Myth of Normal, Dr. Gabor Mate and Daniel Mate found that one of the top 3 predictors of disease in all of life is pervasive self-sacrifice. And they said this is something that is chronic with women, with the way that we've been brought up, that we sacrifice ourselves for the good of everyone else around us. And that includes very much sacrificing our own joy and happiness. There's that on the one hand. And then on the other hand, for working women, we get into the workforce, and many of us are put into high-stress workplaces where We have to prove ourselves over and over again. We have to go above and beyond. We have to work extra hours. We have to be productive at all times to prove our worth, right? So there's this, either we have to be giving or we have to be producing at all times. Overwork, unsurprisingly, is one of the top key predictors of burnout. So we're getting to this place where we're overworking, we're chronically self-sacrificing, and then we're wondering why we're not particularly happy or joyful, and we're constantly stressed and burning out when we just put joy on the back burner, something that we actually can't do unless we have checked everything off the to-do list, taking care of everyone else around us. So it gets us to this place where we just constantly feel guilty if we are doing anything that is not giving or producing, i.e., anything that brings us immense joy. 2 years ago in Mexico with one of my best friends, name is Megan, and it's her 40th birthday. We're sitting in Mexico, just the two of us. She has a young child, I have 2 young children, and we're just sitting at the damn pool having a margarita. And I say to Megan, I'm really just struggling. We had left our children at home with grandparents. It's just my husband and I. We were gone for, I think, 5 days. And I was like, wow, like I keep just like crippling guilt while I'm sitting here. And she looks at me and says, you mean you don't always feel that way? And I was like, oh my gosh, like it is so ingrained in our psyche that we can't even take a few days off to just be happy and be with our friends. Journalist Catherine Goldstein, when I was having a conversation with her, she had this quote that just like rocked me to the core of my being. She says, the expectation we put on mothers manifests for many of us as guilt, and that guilt is a form of social control. Mothers feel so overwhelmed by what's being asked of them that they don't have the bandwidth or the community or the wherewithal to demand change. Guilt makes you quiet, it makes you shrink, and it makes you not want to talk about things. So we have this kind of cultural, societal conditioning that we must be giving, we must be producing, we must be sacrificing ourselves. Anything that brings us happiness becomes something that we start seeing as a luxury, something that we have to earn, or something that is incredibly selfish. So we don't want to do it that often. As a result, we become disconnected from our joy. I feel like this is one of the things that I keep experiencing, but I couldn't put a name to it, like this sinking feeling that I was doing something wrong anytime I was not giving or producing. Anytime I was doing something just because it made me happy or joyful, I felt like I was doing something wrong. And as a result, I became further and further disconnected from my joy. Hence, we get to this conversation a few years ago when my friend Carrie is saying, I don't even think I've seen you happy in years. And I'm like, yeah, that tracks, because I haven't felt like I'm allowed to do anything that makes me happy in years. Like, that's just what we're supposed to do, right? Like, we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves. We're supposed to sacrifice our joy. We're not really supposed to be happy once we get to a certain age, right? That's what we're supposed to do here. So for me, once I realized that I was very disconnected from my joy, that a lot of it was based on societal conditioning, and that disconnecting from my joy chronically was actually making me potentially at more risk of disease and heightening my stress levels, I was like, okay, perhaps I'm going to start exploring and being more intentional about how I relate to joy. And one of the things that helped me just completely flip here was I was reading a book called Leading with Joy, which is written by Akaya Windwood and Rajasvini Banzali. And they had this quote right at the beginning: joy is dangerous. It's a threat to the systems of control and power over, and is therefore one of the best tools we have as leaders making change. It allows us to move from extracting from others for our self-centered benefit toward transformation for all society. And as I read these words, I was like, oh, what if joy wasn't something that is selfish and a luxury? What if joy is a beautiful act of resistance against the toxic systems that have made it so women feel like they have to be disconnected from their joy? In a world where we have toxic workplaces, where we're constantly being made to feel as though we are not enough, that we have to do more, that we have to give more of ourselves, that we have to produce more, unashamedly finding joy and being in a place of pure joy is radical. It's a gorgeous act of resistance for women to be able to reclaim their autonomy and model to others that it is in fact okay to be joyful. This was this shift for me where I was like, okay, it's an act of resistance. I like this. I like where this is going. That was the first part of me recommitting to joy. And then I looked at some of the research behind joy. If you listened to the previous episode, I talked about Harvard's Human Flourishing Program. And one of the key predictors of human flourishing that they have found, there are 5, is happiness and life satisfaction, aka joy. It is a necessary component for us to be able to flourish as humans, finding things and doing things that make us feel happy and satisfied. Reconnecting with your joy is a critical step to flourishing in life. Number 2, this is incredible research done by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. Dr. Fredrickson pioneered the broaden and build theory. In short, what it looked at is that positive emotions like joy and love actually make us broaden our mindset. It opens us up. It helps us be more expansive, whereas negative emotions, fear, anger, etc., actually shrink us. They contract and make us smaller. When we are in a place where we are more open and had broadened ourselves and more expansive, it actually has been shown that it helps us make better decisions. It helps us be more innovative and creative, and helps us be more aware, present, and build stronger relationships with those around us. But wait, there's more. These short-term practices make it so that you are more easily able to bounce back in the face of challenges in the future, and it makes you more resilient to manage difficult situations. Pulling all of this together, essentially, the more you access your joy, the more you're able to flourish, and the better decisions you're going to make, the better relationships you're going to be having, the more present and aware you are, the more innovative and creative you'll be, which will make you more resilient in the long term, all of which serves at work to make you a better leader, and at home to be just a better damn human. So joy makes you better at everything. Aha. Once I had this realization, I was like, oh my God. Okay. So joy is not being selfish. Joy is actually making me a better leader. It's making me a better human, making me a better partner, making me a better mom. It's a core element of human flourishing, and it's a radical act of resistance for women to dismantle the harmful systems that have held us into terrible positions for the last 10,000 years, give or take. Holy macaroni. These were the mindset shifts for me that I was like, oh, okay. Maybe, just maybe, I can look at joy a little bit different. It's not something to feel guilty about and that I have to earn. I'm gonna prioritize it. I can do this. And even still, it was hard. So this is going to take us to our 3 core practices of reconnecting with your joy. Now that we've talked about why we're disconnected from joy, why joy is in fact very important to our lives, let's talk about what it looks like to reconnect with your joy. And the first practice is in fact defining what it is that brings you joy. So let's go back. We have the Carrie thing. Carrie's like, oh, you don't seem particularly happy. And I'm like, I'm not. And then I was like, oh, wait, what's my relationship with joy? Fast forward a few months. My dad was diagnosed with 2 different types of cancer, requiring months and months of chemotherapy. And I would go down to his chemotherapy sessions with him at the Rocky Mountain Cancer Center and sit with him. And I don't know if you've ever been in a room where people are receiving chemo. At least this center, it was, maybe 50 recliners all in little groups, and there's 50 people in the room. Everyone's receiving chemo. And so as I'm there, a lot of the times my dad, chemo's making him not feel very good, very tired. A lot of time he would just kind of sleep, and I would hold his hand or just keep him company while he's doing this. And I would look around the chemo center and had the heart-wrenching realization that a lot of the people in the room were my age or younger. And it was one of those moments where it specifically brought me to this one human being in my life who she will never know how much of an impact she's had on my life, but it is incredibly significant. So way back in, I think it was 2017, we had the formidable entrepreneur Lila Jana grace the cover of one of our Conscious Company magazine issues. For those of you who are watching video, here she is. She was the CEO of Sama Source, an incredible social entrepreneur who had changed the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people. And I still remember going to San Francisco for this interview, this big cover interview for the magazine. And just Lila was this force of nature. She swirled into the room. She had just gotten back from France where she'd been wingsuiting through the mountains or something, just some bonkers activity. She had this joy of life. Just everything that she was talking about was the best. She was building incredible things. She was changing so many lives. There was nothing that she couldn't do. I felt inspired to be a better version of myself as a result of being in the room with her. So we had this cover interview. And a few years later, I hear through the grapevine that Lila has been diagnosed with a very rare and aggressive cancer. And of course, she is she's able to do anything in the entire world. So there's no way that this is going to be an issue for her. And later that year, she lost her life. She was 37 years old. And when I saw that she and I were the exact same age, it was like a spear in the chest moment of remembering that nothing is guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And so as I'm sitting in the chemo center with my father, who's contending with 2 different types of cancer, looking at people who are my age, thinking about Lila, I, of course, think about if this were my last year on earth, what would I regret? And fortunately, I've taken some big swings in life. I've done a lot of the things that I want to do. I have gone for it. I've launched magazines. I've had incredible experiences. I have beautiful relationship with my husband, children, all of the things, all of the key issues. I really feel like there's very little that I would regret, with the exception of that I don't do much anymore that brings me joy. I thought about what Carrie had said to me about how she hadn't seen me happy in a very long time. And so this was this pivotal moment that I'm driving home. It's about a 30-minute drive from the chemo center back home to Boulder. And I'm starting to think about, okay, how do I reconnect with my joy? I had felt so disconnected from it that I actually couldn't have told you the things that brought me immense joy at the time. So I went home and I was like, how do I re-access my joy? I thought about every memory that I had where I felt immense joy, where I felt deeply content to the core of my soul, where I felt awe-inspired, where I laughed so hard that my stomach was on fire. Those moments in life where you're on my deathbed, these are probably going to cycle through. And I wrote them all down. And then I went through and looked at what are the key elements that are common denominator issues across all of these things, the most joyful moments of my life. And there were very specific things that I was I think that thing, traveling. I love to travel by myself, with others. It doesn't matter. I love the experience of adventure, seeing new things, looking at things that I've never seen before. I love eating delicious food. I'm a foodie. I love finding things that taste incredible and savoring them and enjoying them. I love deep conversations with people who I love. I love hosting salon dinners. I love getting to know people. I love anything where there's 4 or 5 of our closest friends and we're playing board games or we're doing something where we're so present and engaged with each other that we can barely stand it and we're laughing our faces off. I love being outside, being in nature, walking in aspen trees, being on hikes with my friends, my family, anything. So I was okay, these are things that I know 100% without fail bring me joy. What would it look like to intentionally re-engage with these things? And so instead of just being oh, let's just have a little daily practice, I was what is the biggest effing thing I could possibly think of to reconnect with my joy? Because that's part of my personality. And I was you know what? I am going to go on a joy trip. What is a joy trip, you ask? It is a trip specifically built all around the things that bring you the most joy in your life. I realized as a result of having a child, then the pandemic, then having another child, we hadn't traveled in ages. And in my brain, I was like, it's cool. I'm just like not going to travel for like the next decade. Don't worry about it. It became this story that I had that I wasn't allowed to travel anymore, especially not alone because I can't leave my children, I can't leave my work, all the things. And I was like, no, we're gonna shelve that particular story and I'm gonna come up with a joy trip. What would my joy trip look like? I was like, all right, do you want to know what? I want to go to the UK. I want to go spend a few days by myself traveling. I want to meet my brother there. We're going to go up to Liverpool. We're going to go to a Liverpool soccer game at Anfield Park, which I'm a huge Liverpool football supporter. This is like the mecca of soccer, aka football. I have to do this. This is a bucket list item. And then I'm going to go down to Cardiff in Wales, where my brother was living at the time, to see my nieces who I hadn't seen in a couple years. It's like, this is my joy trip. I'm going to do it. I propose it to my husband, and my beautiful, gorgeous, supporting, loving husband. His first thing is like, "Wait, like, are you serious?" Because neither of us had been accessing our joy or doing anything like this for so long at this point, in service of our work, in service of our kids, that he initially thought I was joking. And the old me, the one that felt like joy was something that was very selfish and something that I had to deserve, was like, that old me would have 100% caved and been like, yes, you're right. I am joking. I'm being unreasonable. This is ridiculous. Never mind. The new one was like, yes, yes, Scott, I am in fact serious. And here is why. I told him about how I'd felt disconnected from my joy, how it was something that I felt like I would regret, how life was so short, all of the reasons that had led up to this moment. And he was like, okay, let's figure it out. And so I proposed to him that as our resources dictate, at least every other year, or if we can swing it every year, each of us gets a joy trip. 1 week to go do whatever we want to do. I got to do the first one, flew into London, a few days in London alone, traveling, eating good food, like literally everything was about just doing anything that brought me joy. Met my brother, went to Anfield, met my little nieces, experienced Cardiff for a few days. And on the last day was, in fact, having dinner with my brother and sister-in-law, Katie. I was talking about the genesis of this trip, why I was on this trip, about my whole accessing joy. And my sister-in-law says, I don't even think I know what brings me joy anymore. I was like, ironic that I'm on my joy trip and I'm hearing this from you. I think I'm hearing this from pretty much every single woman that I know. So I invited her to potentially explore that a little bit further. Flew home, came home, and realized as soon as I walked back in the door how restored I felt, how rejuvenated, energized, reconnected I felt with myself, but also, as we saw with the research from Dr. Fredrickson, because I'd been accessing joy so intentionally for a full week, I came back and was able to be so much more present and aware. I was building better relationships with the people I was around. I felt like I was more creative. I had incredible ideas on my trip about things I could do when I got home, which, as then we see, makes us more resilient in the long term. So I started seeing the ways in which this was working for me and have made it a continual practice. I quite literally, last week, got back from my 2025 joy trip, which I went to Prague with one of my best friends, Katie. She called me a few months ago, said I have to go to Prague for like an MBA capstone project that we're doing, an international case study in Prague. I have a free hotel room. Do you want to come? And I was like, funny timing. I'll be there 100,000%. We flew into Munich. We went to Salzburg. We went to Prague. I had 4 days completely alone in Prague and have come home just lit the F up. So much happier, so much more resilient, so much more resourced, so much more energized as a result of, again, reconnecting with my joy. So we're going to go all the way back to the practice, which is, in fact, defining what brings you joy. Use the questions. I recommend journaling, thinking about every single moment that you can think of where you have felt immense joy or happiness or a deep sense of awe or satisfaction or contentment. Write as many of these down as you possibly can, and then look through what are the common elements. What can I see here that I know consistently makes me happy and joyful? Define it. Figure it out. It is step one. Step two, make it a regular practice that you check in on, either daily or weekly. So per Harvard's Human Flourishing Program, 2 key practices that they have to re-access your joy, very clear, research-backed. Number 1, gratitude journal. A daily gratitude practice. Writing down 3 things you're grateful for reconnects you to that experience of being happy and joyful, as well as another practice they recommend is the practice of savoring, spending 5 to 10 minutes, drinking a cup of coffee on your porch or going for a walk outside, doing something that you enjoy and spending 5 to 10 minutes intentionally savoring every single element of it, using your senses. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What do you hear? Just being fully present in that moment and savoring a daily moment that genuinely brings you a small dose of joy every day. We have a daily check-in practice with my little family. I mean, my kids are 3 and 5, and we do this every single night at dinner. What is the most joyful part of your day? What was the best thing that happened to you today? And for my husband and I, it is such a powerful practice where there are days where I'm like, I just worked today. I didn't, and so it helps you dig deep and either realize something that you enjoyed about your work or realize that you've had multiple days in a row where you didn't really have something to say at the dinner table. And then oftentimes I'll be like, do you want to know what my most joyful moment is right now, having dinner and talking about this with my beautiful little family. It helps you just reconnect every single day with your joy. So either gratitude practice, savoring, the dinner practice, whatever you need to do to have a daily check-in with your joy. And at the end of your week, check in. What were the 3 most joyful moments of your week? Just write them down along with your gratitude practice. This will just help it get back into your psyche as something to pay attention to, be intentional about, and it makes it not something that is a luxury. It's something that you access every day, and it's okay. You're giving yourself permission to talk about it and for yourself to be joyful on a regular basis. Practice number 3, schedule it. And yes, let me tell you, when I was first like, oh my God, scheduling joy, it sounds so wrong, right? Put it on your calendar. And also, put it on your effing calendar. You're going to need to do it. Let's be real here. If it's not on your calendar, it often doesn't happen. This was entrepreneur Erin Wade. She's a restaurateur. She started Homeroom Restaurant in Oakland, California. She's running this hugely successful smash hit restaurant, and it's just overwhelming her life. And she has this realization in the middle of it that she is in fact not particularly happy because she's put her joy and everything that brings her happiness on the back burner, or when she's doing the thing that makes her most joyful on a consistent basis, which is surfing, she's either not prioritizing it or she's hiding it from her team and is feeling guilty about doing it and not wanting them to know that she's doing it. But then she was like, wait a second, if I'm going to model well-being and a beautiful workplace culture here where I want everyone to be happy and healthy, I, in fact, need to show them that it is okay that the CEO does it herself. So she, every Tuesday and Thursday morning, put surfing on her calendar. She had blocked it off and wrote surfing on there, didn't just put busy, but was very open with her team. I will be surfing on Tuesday and Thursday morning from these hours to these hours. Do not disturb unless there is an emergency over a certain amount of dollars that you absolutely need me on. If not, please do not disturb. I will be on the water being joyful and super happy and surfing. This is a practice that many CEOs, many leaders that I know who are thriving in their life, schedule their things that bring them joy. Steph Gripney, she's the CEO of the Impact Finance Center in Denver. She told me that at least once a week, sometimes 2 times a week, on her calendar, she puts partner dancing. She loves partner dancing. It makes her incredibly happy and joyful. There's a place she goes in Denver where she does this, and she does it every single week without fail. Our friends Emily and Cesar, they have a weekly practice. Emily gets Tuesday nights, Cesar gets Thursday nights, where the one of them is released to go do whatever they want to access their joy while the other one stays home with their young child. And then on Friday night, it's couples joy night, date night. They have a regular sitter who comes every Friday night so that they can go be joyful together. Joy on Thursday, joy on Tuesday, joy on Friday. Everyone wins. It's like fabulous. Find a way to put the things that bring you joy on your calendar. The small daily things, the weekly things, perhaps it's a monthly thing, or if you want to get crazy about it, the yearly thing, the big ticket item, the joy trip. I have inspired multiple friends to do this as well. Now that I'm pretty open and honest about my yearly-ish joy trip, other people are feeling like, oh, wait, I want to do a joy trip as well. And I'm like, yes, do it. Figure out a way to do it. And reciprocity. Last year, my husband went to New Hampshire with 3 of his best guy friends, and they spent a week on a lake doing their thing, having the blast, doing just being super happy and joyful. And he returns to his family just so much more present and engaged and excited and happy in his life as a result of doing it. I think the best recommendation I have is, instead of thinking about all the reasons why it won't work, figure out a way to make it work. This is what my husband and I have had to do. We both are busy. We both have demanding careers. We have young children. It's a lot to leave one of us home alone with the 3 and the 5-year-old. So our practice is that, our joy trip is centered around a time when one of our parents can come and help out, get extra help, save up, whatever you need to do, figure out a way to make it work on a consistent basis rather than immediately jumping into all the reasons why it won't work. So these are the 3 practices that I would encourage for you to reconnect with your joy. Define what makes you joyful, reconnect with it on a daily or weekly basis, and schedule it. Pretty simple. The more that you do so, the more that you will reconnect with your joy, which will also help you just reconnect with yourself and the beauty of life. Joy is not something that has to be earned. It is, in fact, a birthright. You do not have to be worthy of being happy. You do not have to produce a certain amount or give a certain amount of yourself. You deserve to flourish. Each of us does. And joy is one of the key ways to come back to yourself and to ensure that you are actually flourishing in your life. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to Better Than This. As a reminder, you can always find show notes and any corresponding resources for the show on the show's website at meghanfrenchdunbar.com/better than this. And if today's episode resonated with you, I would be very grateful if you could leave a review or a rating on whichever podcast platform you're listening to the show on, or share the episode with a friend who you think would appreciate it. You can also subscribe to my Stack for weekly insights and tools to support your growth along the way. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo so we can, wait for it, build something better than this. Take care.